What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for coming back to another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about The Mandalorian, Chapter 6, The Prisoner. We are now on the 6th out of 8 episodes of The Mandalorian, the first season, the first ever live-action Star Wars show to ever come out, now on Disney+. If you've been watching this series of videos I've been doing every week about each episode, you know that I've been loving this show. I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, and there's just so much in there for me. It's been nice little fun Star Wars adventures that are just aesthetically, it's just so beautiful. So this week falls in line with the rest of the episodes that we've seen thus far. Aesthetically, I'll go ahead and start. This is one of the most beautiful episodes I think we've gotten so far from a practical and digital standpoint. There's just something about Star Wars that I love visually. Of course, I think that's part of what resonates with people so much. But being able to watch this show done in live action that has, you know, this different TV kind of style to it, but there's something about the digital effects and the blend of the digital and practical effects that are just done so well. There's so many great space shots and different things like that in this episode, and so many great practical elements as far as makeup and just kind of different things like droids that just are just so well done in this episode. So the first thing that really caught my eye when the episode started was just, like every week, I'm just always blown away that I'm watching new Star Wars that just looks so good. So aesthetically, this episode just falls in line with just being just as great as those last few episodes. As for the story in this episode, you pretty much have the Mandalorian going on a mission with a group of mercenaries to recover a prisoner from a Republic base. And yeah, that's what I'll leave it at. It's a very, very good episode. I really enjoyed it. I felt like it had some really great action, a lot of really great tension, and there's some really great moments with the Mandalorian and the child. And what I will say about this episode, though, is again, similar to the last few episodes, something that has been a big criticism from some of the people who may not like this show is the fact that the show is not really your typical show. There's not really that typical streamlined narrative that you expect when you watch a television show. Maybe it'll end with a cliffhanger or lead you into believing what the next episode will be about. Whereas each and every episode, though there is a through line, you know, there is something to follow here. Majority of the episodes are very much kind of almost standalone. Every single episode, in a lot of ways, outside of the first episode, after you've seen the first episode, you could almost watch them in a different order, and there isn't really a huge story to follow. And so that's one thing that's been a big criticism from some who maybe really don't like the show or just kind of want to hate on it in general. For me, there's just too much there for me to hate it for that. However, I think it's something I got to recognize that now that we're on the 6th episode, and including this episode, yeah, you know, there's going to be eight episodes in the season, and I just don't feel like they've really have like an overall plot that has been driving this season. So that's going to work for some people, and that's not going to work for others. When it comes to me, I really enjoy what they're doing with the show visually. I really enjoy what they're doing with each and every episode. There hasn't been an episode that I disliked. However, I have left most of these episodes wondering, what is the big story here, you know? And something's just telling me that there really isn't going to be one. Maybe there will be some sort of culmination of all of these episodes in the final episode. But for the most part, it feels like each and every episode is going to be very much its own thing that, you know, again, slowly builds on this story with the Mandalorian and the child. But there really isn't going to be some huge through line with, you know, this beginning, middle, and end. And so I think that's going to work for some people, like I said, and not work for others. For me, as a diehard Star Wars fan, there's just too much here from a performance standpoint, from a special effects standpoint, to the action standpoint. And also for me, when I just consume so much Star Wars media outside of the films, there's plenty of comic books and books that I read that are kind of just like fun adventures. They don't really have to be these huge plot-driven stories that really play into the larger world. A lot of times they're just these fun side pieces, and I feel like this show is doing just that. It's not necessarily required viewing, but I think that if you were a diehard Star Wars fan or somebody who just enjoys that universe, this show has done such a great job of just being its own thing, making tons of references to the world, making it feel like a lived-in Star Wars show, and that's something I really enjoy. There's so many moments of dialogue in this episode that just tie into so many other things. There's so many little hints and nods to things. There are about 4 cameos in this episode that I really, really enjoyed. And there are also main characters in this episode that are really popular faces that you'll instantly recognize once you see. And so that was one thing that was almost a little jarring for me. It's like all these popular faces. And then there's about like 3 or 4 cameos in this episode that are from people within the Star Wars community that if you're just a casual Star Wars viewer, you will most likely not get. And I don't want to spoil who those cameos are, but yeah, there's a handful of cameos in this episode that I think if you are an eagle-eyed Star Wars fan who knows about the people who are involved in Star Wars, you will have a really good time with it. One of them specifically is one of the more popular voice actors from one of the animated shows. I'll leave it at that. I think, again, those of you who know this kind of stuff, those other Star Wars fans like me who know those details and know who's behind the voices of different characters, you're going to be able to pick those out really, really easy. So yeah, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. But I can agree, as much as I'm loving for this show, is that, yeah, they really don't have this overall narrative that's being pushed from beginning to end. It feels like each and every episode is its own adventure that slowly builds small narrative pieces from the first episode. So I'm really curious how they intend to continue to grow the story. And if it turns out that the first season is really just this season where it doesn't really have this huge interconnected story, and they kind of just leave this season with kind of a cliffhanger and leaving you open for the next season because we already know that they're already shooting season 2, then maybe season 2 is where that'll kind of pick up as far as a huge narrative. Or maybe they'll kind of take that criticism and be like, all right, well, maybe for this next season we'll kind of have more of a beginning, middle, and end for the season rather than each episode being its own adventure and not really having this big narrative. Because I think that that's what people are looking for, is this big plot and narrative that they can follow across all these episodes, where in reality each and every episode slowly builds to that, but in the end of the day is really its own thing and its own fun adventure. However, I've consumed so many Star Wars stories that are, you know, just fun adventures and don't have to be these big things that play into the plot or some overarching story, you know what I mean? I'm having such a great time with the show. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Leave me your thoughts down below. Did you like this episode? Did you not like this episode? What are your feelings on this series so far up to this point, if you've seen the first 6 episodes? Because yeah, I do agree that being 2 episodes away from the season finale, that's like, what are they going to do with these last 2 episodes, you know, to really build the story that's been set up in this season, you know what I mean? So yeah, guys, that's gonna be my thoughts on episode 6 of The Mandalorian, The Prisoner. Leave those comments down below, guys, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.